Hello and welcome to another playthrough. This time I'm taking a slight little detour here. I'm still doing an anniversary playthrough, but I'm doing a slight detour here and playing Flying Colors from GMT um, in the Age of Sail, fighting in the Age of Sail. And we're actually going to be playing the Battle of the Nile. This is where Lord Horatio Nelson defeated the French fleet that bottled up Napoleon in Egypt um, during his early years. And I was inspired by this, by what you're looking at right now. A magazine article here called Britannia Triumph at the Nile in the latest issue of Military Heritage. Great little article here, kind of got me inspired here. And I realized that it's the 225th anniversary of this battle that occurred. And I said, boy, I've got this in flying colors. It's the summertime. I am really looking forward to doing some sailing and some water stuff. Actually, I have been sailing already, I should say. So this I got to get excited about in summertime. And thought, hey, this would be a great one to do a video on. It's a anniversary, kind of scratches that itch of sailing, and gets another video out here. So this is what it's all about here, and I'll go over some more details about what it is, but let me kind of show you the setup. I don't know if you've ever played Flying Colors, but it is a naval warfare game, much in the vein of Wooden Ships and Iron Men and other close action, fighting sail, so forth and so on, dealing with fleets during the Age of Sail and the fighting there with the Age of Sail. And this one is a fairly big scenario. You can see here, this is actually two and a half maps. Yeah, 2.5 maps in size, lengthwise, going across here. So I had to do some kind of jury rigging to get this on here. But you're looking at the whole, the whole thing here. And basically, to give you some bit of background here before I get into what you're looking at, Lord Nelson, Horatio Nelson, led his fleet here, found the French fleet here in Aboukir Bay, Egypt, back in 1798, August 1st of 1798, and very boldly raced in to the bay and challenged the French fleet on the evening of the 1st. Or late afternoon, evening of the 1st, I should say. And this battle is going to simulate that. Historically, it was overwhelming British victory. They defeated several French ships, sunk the flagship, basically forced the French fleet to surrender. Although the British suffered some significant losses, they weren't heavy, but significant losses in the battle. But it was very one-sided in terms of the whole thing. But there were some interesting choices here. I think strategically, Nelson, won the day as he entered the bay here. Once he had found them and they were bottled up in the bay, he had the strategic advantage at this point. But yet there's some tactical challenges that are going to be interesting. And as you know, with my other videos, I'm trying to focus in on tactics and trying to see and play those out as much as you can with a game. Obviously, you can't play everything out, and we know too much with a lot of these, but trying to either match or adjust some of those, and I'll outline those here in a few minutes in terms of what I'm going to be doing here. But this was an interesting battle. I thought, I'm playing the solo, and I thought this was a good one because I would not want to play this one, I don't think, with another person. The British have quite the advantage. The French really are on the defensive here, and they're going to take quite a beating with this in here. But maybe, who knows? Maybe this will come out with the French doing some more damage than historically happened, and get some sort of victory out of it. So we'll see. I'll talk about tactics here in a minute. Let me just show you the setup here. And what you're looking at right now is kind of the northerly end of the map and the northerly end of the battle here. Just to give you some outline over here, we're looking at the British fleet. They've just entered the bay and rounded the cape up here. I forget what that name is up there, but where that one little lonely British ship is there, that's the cape. This whole area is shoals, so there's a potential of running aground over here. And in fact, this lonely ship, the Caldan, actually did run aground up here. There's a special rule in here that roll a dice to see if it runs aground or it stays in line. Historically, it did run aground. The captain was mortified not to be able to participate in the battle, and was kind of stuck on there until they refloated it later on. But this is all shoal here because this is actually Cape, and eventually there's actually off map there was land and actually a fort that was not manned by the French at that point, but there was a fort over there as well. We also have coming down over here, right next to the computer, is the more shoals, and this whole west side of the map is shoals, meaning there's going to be a potential of running aground. You can see there's a -1 modifier right there for running aground. A running around attempt right there as well. Then we have, coming back over here, we have the British fleet still coming into the bay like this, and we'll maneuver them around. Then we have down here the French fleet that was sitting at anchor, and you can see the little anchors on all of those ships as I pan across here, at anchor here in the bay. And they were kind of caught flat-footed. This could be the equivalent of the World War II Taranto 8 raid. I mean, where the British, raided the Italian fleet there in Taranto, or even to some degree, Pearl Harbor. Even though these ships were manned, it took some time to get them into fighting shape, and we'll see that as the battle goes on here. One key ship for the French here is the flagship right here. That is take off the commander, that's the Orient. You can see the name is flipped around there. But it's a 120 gun ship. That was a huge ship, three to four rows on there. And the Vice Admiral Boyers was in command of the French ship. Historically, this ship actually sunk. We'll see if that happens. It's going to take a lot of damage to sink that. I think it's 20 just to get it damaged, which is quite a bit, and then another 20 to potentially sink it at that point. So 40 points of damage is quite a bit to take on. But here's the rest of the French line, all at anchor on here. And I'm also, if you do have flying colors and you do look at the scenario on this, I did add a few things. The French did have some frigates that were over here and here and here that were in here that was not included in the scenario. Not sure exactly why, but that's okay. I've added them in to the scenario because I think it makes a difference, because one of the frigates was actually sunk. This one right here was sunk during the battle, and they did provide some protection as the British doubled their line, meaning that when the British came in over here, these early ships like the Goliath and the Orion and the Zealous actually came around onto their port side and fired on the French ships over here, while other ships like the Vanguard, the flagship, Nelson's flagship, came around on the starboard side and fired on them. So they doubled up the lines over here. So we'll see. We're probably going to do that again because I just think it's an interesting tactic and just experiment with it. Plus with these shoals, it will be interesting here as well. And basically come down the line, blasting away as much as possible on here to defeat them. So there's a lot of French ships at anchor here. Now, tactics-wise, I was mentioning what am I going to do here With the British, I'll probably keep to Nelson's attack. He was very aggressive. Probably keep to that same aggression on here, doubling up the line, trying to break the lines, crossing T's, so forth and so on here as well. I don't see much change with that. The real question in terms of tactics is what to do with the French fleet. Now, one of the things, these are at anchor, which means if they stay at anchor, they'll get some firing bonus on there. So one question is, do they stay at anchor and just take the punishment and hopefully get the bonus will outweigh that, or do the French cut their anchors and try to maneuver and attack the fleet out there as well? That's going to be a tricky proposition, but it's a good question to bring up. It's tricky for two reasons. One, it's going to take time to get into fighting shape, and two, to cut anchors. The third thing is, I haven't mentioned so far, the wind is completely against them. The wind is right into their faces, so they're going to be taken aback, which means they're going to have to perform some sort of sternaway or some sort of maneuver to turn before they can even get a trace of the wind. So that's going to leave them very vulnerable to the British attack. So that's going to be one tricky piece of it here. Now, I may not do that with the front of the line because they're going to get into action pretty quick, but it brings in good questions on the back of the line, the actual rear sections, which are essentially these three to four ships down here, plus this this guy. My hand's on the way. Frigate. So they could potentially have the time, as the British come around to the north, to cut their anchors or raise their anchors and start maneuvering to try to double up the British line. Again, they're going to have a tricky way of doing, or tricky time doing it, because of the weather. Remember, the weather gauge is not in their favor. I'll just move this down. They're going to be taken aback because the wind is right into their faces. Okay, this is a handy little dial I had here in terms of putting out the gauge, because one shows the wind direction, but then gives the relative speeds available to a ship depending upon the way they're going. So if the wind's going this way and they're pointed that way, they get 0 MPs. They're taken aback. If they're pointing this way towards me, towards the camera, they're reaching and they're going to get 5 MPs. That's the way the British are set up. Here, let me swing you back here. I'm not trying to go too fast, but you'll see the British up here are in a reaching mode, so they're going to get 5 MPs. They've got complete maneuverability. They've got complete and total wind advantage to them in here to start off. Again, the wind can change. That's another option too. That could happen, and the British could find themselves without the weather gauge, and the French with it at that point. I don't know. We'll have to see from here. Another question, tactical question for the French is, can they use their anchors, and were they rigged for spring maneuverability? Meaning, could they actually quickly rotate upon their anchors either way, either this way or that way, to actually maneuver? Or were they in a typical harbor anchor position where the ships were not on springs, they just dropped their anchors just to keep them where they were, and go from there? There's nothing in the scenario about that. There is rules in flying colors for anchoring and for springs, spring rigging, I should say, but I'm just not sure if that's going to be available for us. I'm still doing a little bit of research on that to see. But that will be another interesting question, because that potentially can give the French a little bit of advantage when they do, get their forces together and in battle, because there is a special rule. They're not going to be able to move right away until they roll a special dice roll. But when they do, they could pivot like this and potentially now put their broadside right into the faces of the British as they close around there. So that's another interesting piece there as well, to see what they can do defensively to mitigate their poor maneuvered position upon here. The British have to be careful when they're doubling the line. They've got shoals over here that if they are not careful, they can wind up in here and needing to take grounding rolls. So they're going to have to be careful. The British also can anchor as well. So they could come up here with like 3 ships, just drop their anchors right here and just pound away at this lead ship of the French and reduce it to nothing, and then lift their anchors again, move down the line, hit the next ship with anchors, lower their anchors, and go from there. Now there is one thing: the rules do limit to anchoring. That tactic of anchoring and lifting anchors just 2 times per scenario, so they can't use it all the time, but it is an interesting tactic, particularly when we get down here to some of the heavier ships like the Orient, which is going to need to be heavily pounded away to get it reduced and get it to surrender or to be boarded within there. So some interesting tactical positions here for the French, also for the British. I'm going to try out here. This is 30 turn scenario. I probably will not show every single turn in here. I will, first couple turns there's going to be a little bit of maneuvering here, so I might do a series of 3 or 4 turns altogether. Turns are pretty quick. Well, relatively, depending upon the number of ships. We've got a lot of ships. Once they get into action, it could be a little bit longer turns, but I'll try to give summaries every few turns. I will also look to do some actual combat turns, meaning I'll actually play through a turn if we get knee deep into the battle over here with the British and the French doubled up. I may actually bring on and do a session with a full playthrough at that point, dice rolls and combat and everything, calculations and things like that there as well. So another thing I'm doing, you probably saw over here, is I have the special cards that the Flying Colors folks put together for the ships, the ship cards. Let me just bring one in here to show you. These are kind of interesting because they allow you to put all of the counters that are going to start accumulating onto these little cards. I like that because particularly with the hull hits, rigging hits, and things like that, they start accumulating very rapidly once the fighting starts. And I can actually align this with the ships, so I can put this over here with the Zealous right there, and kind of have that card right next to it. So I could also have the Gaillard and put that down here. So if the 2 of them were actually in a fight, I could actually have these side by side or close to each other, so I can actually see what's going on with each of them there as well. So you'll see me moving these around as the battle develops. And there's quite a few of them. I've got them over here on kind of the open space of the board right now, just so I have them available for me. So you can see the kind of pinkish red is the British, the blue is the French, and then actually more French down here. These are the frigates. There we go. There's the frigates down there. Okay. So that's what I'm up to, folks. And that's what's going to be the next scenario here. Hopefully post this, I'm doing this about a month in advance of the actual anniversary here, but hopefully post this start posting this around the anniversary of the battle there as well. So hopefully you enjoy. Hopefully you like this introduction, kind of a brief one over there. I highly recommend if you're interested in ships, interested in the battles and stuff, I highly recommend Flying Colors. Also recommend this article here in the latest issue of Military Heritage, U.S. Magazine. Not sure if other people are watching from around the world, but definitely a very good article on this. And I know there's some other books. One I've got coming in as well, talking about the battle itself. So that will be it. So I'm going to get started with this, and we'll see you on the first set of videos with the first few turns. So thanks for watching. Please hit the like button, subscribe, etc. Always appreciated with that. And we'll talk with you later. Bye-bye.